former president, walking out right now. He's coming to the cameras. Court just wrapping. Let's listen.
Another hearing, and the trial starts on Monday, which is long before a lot of people thought. The judge wants us to go as fast as possible. That's for his reasons, not for my reasons. And this is really a concerted witch hunt, very simple. Everything you heard in there, this is a witch hunt by numerous judges, Democrat judges. You take a look at it, Engoron is a whack job. What he did was a disgrace. It's being reviewed by the appellate division. And I hope they do justice, because everybody's looking, and no business is coming into the city, none whatsoever. They're looking at that case. That case is a threat to democracy, frankly, what took place with the AG, a crooked AG, Letitia James, who campaigned on the fact that I'm going to get Trump, That's all she said for 2 years. And people don't want to see this stuff. When you have violent criminals all over the streets of New York and nothing happens, so even when they catch them, they let them go. No bail whatsoever. So this is just a concerted witch hunt, whether it's Judge Kaplan with a person I have no idea until they called and said they're suing us. I had no idea who this person was, or this judge, or if you look at Engoron, where he said that Mar-a-Lago, which if it was worth $1 billion or $1.5 billion, he said it was worth $18 million because that suited his narrative. But what's happening in this city and all over the country, but what's happening in particular in this city, some are very good, by the way, some are very fair. Those are really the cities that are thriving. But what's happening here with the judicial system is an outrage. And all over the world they're watching it, and all over the world they're seeing it. This is a giant witch hunt to try and hurt a campaign that's beating the worst president in history. Biden's the worst president in the history of our country, beating him by a lot. And this is the only way they think they can win, but it's not going to work. Thank you very much, everyone.
Are your lawyers, what are your thoughts on the jury? Are your lawyers doing a good job? What do you think of the man who set himself on fire, sir?
You've been listening to the former president who went through a litany of issues that he often talks about. Just for complete clarity, there's no evidence that the current president or the White House have anything to do with this current case that he's facing here in New York in the courtroom behind me. Evan, I want to go to you because I thought, beyond the stuff that we always hear from the former president, what's most fascinating is what preceded that, which was a Sandoval hearing where there was an argument over what could be brought into play if the former president testifies, which gave you a good read on what his last year has been. Name-checking right. Judge Kaplan, Judge Engoron, Judge Merchan. Why?
Well, he's got a lot of beefs, and so he's going to name-check every single one of those. And, you know, literally, as this was happening, just uptown, there was another hearing, an appeals court hearing, where a judge was hearing a last-minute request for a stay. Again, they're trying to figure out a way to move this trial, and what the former president's lawyers were doing there were trying to argue that, you know, citing things that happened inside this court, saying, for instance, a woman who had been seated, who said that she felt pressure from the media attention, and so was removed from the jury. And citing that as an example of why he cannot get a fair trial. The opposite is true from this, from what we've seen.
Stacey, in terms of what we heard from the president after court adjourned, you know, making very clear that he believes the judges in several of his legal issues were clearly targeting him, were out to get him. Given everything that you've seen over the course of this week, do you have the sense that there is a political tilt to what the president's dealing with in the courtroom behind me?
I think there's an emotional tilt to what the president was dealing with just a few minutes before he came out with that statement. He just came from a Sandoval hearing, which is where the prosecution, in the presence of the judge and the defense counsel, lays out all your prior bad acts through your lifetime that they're aware of. And he's had to listen to them cite all those things, all the cases and trials and problems he's had that he's railed against in the press. He's now had to listen to that up close and personal. And the moment he came out was just before that happened. And I think that statement was not his typical railing about this as a political witch hunt, but more his own emotional response to what he just heard. Defendants coming out of a Sandoval hearing are not pleased. It's just the nature of the hearing. It's kind of the worst preview of what could come if you take the stand. So it's rattling. I think he was rattled.
Yeah, I mean, he was so very specific about the judges that he's had issues with in his cases he's lost, cases he's had issues going forward. I think, Jeremy, to that point, is this a one-off because, you know, as Stacey's laying out, this is a tough Sandoval hearing is where you're hearing kind of the worst possible things that could be coming at you if you testify, or is this just a signal of what's going to be coming as things get underway on Monday?
I think this is going to be typical Trump response. And when I'm looking down at some notes, and I apologize, but he said what's happening with the judicial system here is an outrage. I think if you care about law and order, you care about justice, what his behavior is outrageous, and it's incredibly destructive to the criminal justice system, and it's single-handedly dismantling it. And you look at what things he says, and as a prosecutor, it kind of excites you a little bit because he's lying. And how do we know he's lying? He says about he didn't know, had no idea about E. Jean Carroll and Judge Kaplan. Well, we know you knew about E. Jean Carroll because you were found responsible for some sort of ugly sexual abusive behavior towards her. You were found for defaming her. He says, going on about A.G. James, Attorney General James, and Judge Engoron, he just can't control himself. And all that comes from that man's mouth is damaging not just to his credibility, but sets him up for further violations and giving all sorts of evidentiary fodder to prosecutors. And it dumbfounds me that his attorneys, who are incredibly experienced, are not proverbially grabbing him by the collar and saying, Mr. Trump, Don, you've got certainly your political issues here in terms of your campaign, but we have a court proceeding, a criminal one, where if you are convicted, you are going to be a felon forever. It doesn't get expunged. He may never see a day in jail, but a felon forever. And that's what's outrageous. That's what's outrageous.
Yeah, inside the courtroom, his attorney's fighting very fiercely to have those issues not be on the table to be asked about if the former president does end up testifying. Outside the courtroom, remember, there's a political campaign shaping this. This is much what the former president is doing as anything else. Stacey, Jeremy, stand by. We've got much more to discuss. We'll be right back.